Jules Vaughn is one of the most interesting characters when it comes to understanding how digital identity shapes the way a person sees themselves and how they want the world to see them. Her story shows how online spaces can become both a safe hiding place and a dangerous mirror, especially for someone who is still trying to understand who they really are. The psychology behind Jules' digital identity is deep, emotional, and sometimes painful, because it grows from a life where the online world becomes easier to control than the real one. When looking closely at her character, it becomes clear that the internet is not just a tool she uses for connection, but a survival system she builds in order to feel seen. Powerful and desired in a world that often misunderstands her, Jules' online persona is born from the simple human need to belong. Growing up feeling different, rejected, and judged, she found more freedom behind a screen than she ever did in front of the people around her. On the internet, she could choose her words, her pictures, her tone, and even her entire personality. She could design herself into the version she wished others could see in real life. This version is confident, flirtatious, soft, dreamy, and fearless. It is the opposite of the pain she carries inside. In the real world, Jules carries trauma from her childhood, memories of rejection, and the pressure of navigating her identity in a society that often expects perfection from girls while giving very little support. But online, she doesn't have to carry all those pieces. She can hide the part she hates and highlight the part she loves. For Jules, the internet becomes a place where reality feels too heavy, but fantasy feels light enough to breathe in. At the same time, her digital identity becomes a form of power. In the physical world, Jules sometimes feels small, ignored, or misunderstood. But online, she becomes noticed. She becomes wanted. People reach out to her. They compliment her. They treat her like she is glowing. This attention gives Jules a feeling of control she rarely experiences offline. It is not just about attraction or flirting. It is about having a space where she decides how people perceive her. When someone builds their identity on fragile ground in the real world, the online world can feel like a castle where they finally get to be the main character. For Jules, this castle becomes addictive because it fills emotional gaps she has carried for years. When she posts pictures, talks to strangers, or creates a version of herself that appears perfect, she is not only expressing who she wants to be, but also escaping who she fears she really is. However, the digital identity Jules creates is not just for attention or confidence. It is also a coping mechanism. It is the emotional shelter she hides in to avoid dealing with her real pain. Instead of talking about her father's absence, her mother's mistakes, or her own insecurities, she pours her energy into building an online version of herself that feels untouchable. This is why her digital identity feels dreamlike and soft. It allows her to live in a world where vulnerabilities are blurred, feelings are filtered, and emotions can be postponed. Many people do this without noticing. They turn to the internet whenever life feels too heavy. But for Jules, the internet becomes a full-time emotional strategy because she never received the emotional support she needed in her real life growing up. Jules' digital persona is also shaped by desire. Not just the desire to be admired, but the desire to feel safe in her femininity. The real world constantly questions people who don't fit into traditional boxes. And Jules knows this too well. So when she goes online, she expresses her femininity loudly and proudly, because behind a screen she is less afraid of being judged. In that digital space, she doesn't have to explain herself. She doesn't have to justify her identity. She can simply exist as the girl she feels she is inside. Her selfies, messages, and online energy all show a desire to be accepted without question. This is deeply psychological. Humans build identities where they are loved. Jules builds hers in digital spaces because those spaces feel more welcoming. Even if the connection is shallow, but the most complex part of Jules' digital identity is that it is both truthful and false at the same time. It is true because it reflects who she wants to become. It is false because it hides the pain she does not want to face. And this creates a disconnect between her real self and her online self. The real Jules is emotional, complicated, sometimes insecure, and sometimes afraid. But the digital Jules appears confident, open, and emotionally invincible. This gap creates a pressure that grows slowly. Eventually, she starts to feel like she needs to keep performing her online self, even when she feels broken inside. This is one of the hardest psychological experiences of digital identity. The fear that your real self will disappoint the people who admire your online self. The more Jules uses the internet to escape her emotional reality, the harder it becomes for her to open up to real people. In real life, relationships are messy. They require vulnerability, patience, and honesty. But online relationships allow her to avoid those uncomfortable emotions. She can end a conversation when she feels insecure. She can act confident even when she is not. She can curate what she wants others to see. So when she develops real relationships, like her connection with Rue, it becomes easier to retreat into digital fantasy whenever things get too intense. This shows how digital identities can make people scared of real intimacy. The internet allows Jules to feel close to others without the risk of being emotionally hurt. Real life doesn't offer that guarantee. At the same time, Jules' digital identity creates a feedback loop. The more she uses it to feel safe, the less safe she feels without it. The more people admire her online, the more she fears being ordinary offline. This can make reality feel disappointing compared to the fantasy world she creates. It is like living two lives, but only one feels magical. And this magic becomes addictive, even if it is built on illusions. But perhaps the most human part of Jules' psychology is that she is not lying when she is online. She is dreaming. She is imagining a life where she does not feel broken. She is imagining a version of herself that feels complete. The online Jules is not fake. She is a wish. She is a hope. She is the girl Jules is trying to grow into. And sometimes, people need to create a dream version of themselves before they can become it in real life. For Jules, her digital identity becomes a compass pointing her toward the woman she hopes to someday be. In the end, the psychology of Jules Vaughn's digital identity is a story about survival. It is about a girl who uses the internet as a mirror, a shield, a stage, and a diary. It is about how digital spaces can heal emotional wounds while also deepening them. It is about the painful difference between who we are and who we want to be, and how the online world lets us dance between those two selves. Jules' story reminds us that digital identities are not just pictures or messages. They are emotional armor. They are escape routes. They are silent cries for understanding. And for Jules, they are the fragile bridges connecting her painful past to the future she hopes to create.